Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the lunch, the very sunny, beautiful day in the park, and that you're ready for another couple of interesting sessions and a beautiful afternoon. We said that leadership is about moving people for a common purpose, but also helping them in the way of flourishing, developing themselves, finding their own potential and developing their own potential. We said this morning that we have to find the way we want to impact the world and transform the world. But there is, I think, a catch in that sentence. Because when we think about the world, we think we are overwhelmed. And to decide how we will impact the world is how we will take our first step. No matter where you go, you have to take a first step. And then go step by step, person by person. And we said that ultimately the IDGs are a playbook for that, for leading, finding ourselves, inviting others, and moving forward together. We can't change the world without changing ourselves. And in the next session, a very young lady will tell us her own experience on how you can't change the world without changing yourself. And the topic she's chosen is inner activism for outer activism. How to build resilience among youth leaders and why this is essential. Katie Hodgetts was named Conduit's Young Climate Innovator in 2023. She was also received the Global Youth Awards for Empowering Young People, a finalist in 2018, and is the founder of the Resilient Project, an initiative that seeks to build individual and collective resilience. We invite Kate to the stage and receive her with a great round of applause. Rock them.
Hello. Hello. I've been sat in this incredible venue really wanting to test out the acoustics. So after lunch, I thought it might be nice for us to say a big hello back to me, but with anything you need to do, because I don't know about you, but it's been quite a powerful morning. A lot of stuff has been going on. So I'm going to give you just an opportunity now to scream or shout or whisper, whatever you need in this incredible space. Hello! Wonderful. So hello and welcome. My name is Katie Hodgetts. I am a youth climate activator, and I'm going to be telling you a bit later about what that phrase means. I am also the founder and director of the Resilience Project, and that is emotionally and psychologically supporting young people who are taking climate action. So we work to mitigate high rates of burnout, high rates of climate anxiety, and teach young people the transformational skills required for this internal and external transformation, which we've been talking about at this IDG summit for the past 2 days. Outside of that, I live in the Scottish Highlands. Shout if you live in the Scottish Highlands. No, nobody. There's just 30 of us. And I'm here today to talk to you about, there's me, internal activism, which might be a new term for you, and how that relates to external activism. Particularly introducing this concept of climate activation, shifting our language from climate activism to climate activation. Before I start, as is my practice, I want to say welcome. Welcome to all of you in this room. Welcome to you at home, right there. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. And welcome to my mum, who will watch this back, and her entire village, who she will show it to. Hi, Angela. And welcome to all the parts of you today. Welcome to the parts of you that may be feeling very tender from this morning. Welcoming the parts of you that may have also been burnt out, that may have young children who feel climate anxiety, and so this feels like an emotional topic for you. Welcome to those who are curious. Welcome to the parts of you that just really want to check your emails. Those parts are welcome here too. And welcome extraordinarily to the parts of me that feel quite vulnerable up here, and the parts of me that feel such tremendous privilege and joy to be with you here today. So welcome, all of the parts, and welcome. Let's begin, shall we? Yeah. So, in talking about internal and external activism, I'm going to start with telling you a bit about my story. There were some videos, but there's too many people on the Wi-Fi right now, and we might crash the whole system. But as you can see up here, I started my journey in climate activism in my early 20s, and I got involved in so many different aspects. So I got involved in direct action, which I call the shouty stuff. I got involved in advocacy and lobbying. I was a youth delegate at some of the COPs. And I worked with lots of young people in the UK and in Europe particularly. And what I found is a common thread in all of these spaces, which was none of us had any idea how to relate to ourselves, to others, or to the planet. And what that meant is that people would leave the movement, not just because of climate politics, but because of human politics. People would burn out so severely because of the strength of this urgency narrative that meant that we relegated joy and rest. People burnt out because they felt that they weren't worthy of help and rest, that it was selfish and self-indulgent because we were in the global north. People burnt out because we were using guilt and currency as shame in our movement. So I wanted to try to do something really different because it was an unsustainable movement. People would be in the movement for about 3 months, then they would leave. So I started an anti-fracking campaign, and you can see some pictures from that up here. And I took a group of 15 to 20 young people through an annual campaign in our voluntary group in the UK. And I radically changed this campaign by the inclusion of 3 words. How are you? So simple, so simple. We would meet every single week on Zoom, and we introduced a check-in function, which included, how are you? And by including how are you, we started to talk about the emotional terrain that comes with being told that you are the last generation to fix this crisis. That is a huge weight to carry. And by including how are you, we brought in vulnerability. And vulnerability brought her friend connection. And connection brought her friend humanity. And soon we were a campaign movement full of humans taking climate action, rather than climate activists who weren't in touch with their humanity. We did so much in this campaign. Yes, we all felt amazing and we were connected, but it had such impact. So we blockaded a fracking site for 3 days. We sent 500 letters to the UK government signed by young people calling to ban fracking. We created online petitions for people to sign. We were part of a very amazing movement in the UK that led to fracking being banned in the UK. And we sat outside Westminster in silent protest for 8 hours with duct tape over our mouths, saying, "You will not silence the youth voice." So from this insight, I learned that focusing on this internal flourishing, on human connection, on kinship, on humanity, it makes for such incredible campaigns, and it develops the people who are behind the campaigns. And the best part of that story for me is that my team, in secret, nominated me for the Global Youth Awards, for which I became a finalist in the empowerment category, not because of the KPIs of our campaign, not because of all that we'd done, but because focusing on them, having a whole-centered approach, was what was really transforming their lives and moving them from a place of hopelessness to hope. Thank you. The story continues. After this, I became the well-being officer for a few different organizations that I was a part of. I co-founded a Bristol Youth Strike for Climate, which is where I grew up in England. And over 3 years, I mobilized over 80,000 people onto the streets for climate action, which is pretty wicked. However, the question which became really live for me, which is potentially very live for many people in this room, is who cares for the carer? In 2019, the pressure to be a young leader was so enormous for me that I had no ways to cope. Adults were saying to me, "You are such an inspiration. Keep going, keep taking action. You're the future, you're changing the world." And that is such a heavy weight to hold on your chest. I had this idea that to be a leader, I needed to be infallible, that I needed to be perfect, that I needed to mother and midwife the entire youth movement and also be driving climate action. And how I did that, how I managed to cope, is that I would binge lots and lots of food to keep my energy up, to keep doing the action. And then shame would come, stand next to me, peer over my shoulder, and say, "This isn't what a perfect activist does. A perfect activist is about limits. 0 plastic, no waste, no flying. You are gorging in abundance." And what that led to, that sense of shame, no one asking me how I was, how I felt after the protest finished, it led to purging. And I developed bulimia when I was 22. And I'm very careful with where I share that story, and this is the largest place I've ever shared that story. Thank you for holding it with me. The reason why I think it's really important to tell you that story is because it's a really common feeling, is this feeling of loneliness and lack of support in the youth space. So after 1 year of recovery, I started an organization when I was 23 called the Resilience Project. And I started the Resilience Project because I made it my mission that any young person who was being courageous enough to stand up, to be a custodian of our planet, would not feel as lonely as I did when I was supposed to be a leader. I started the Resilience Project because I wanted young people who had foregone so much of their youth and innocence because they are enacting the roles and responsibilities of our elected politicians, those young people, to be rewarded with joy and connection and flourishing, rather than hopelessness and loneliness and despair. So the Resilience Project is an entirely youth-led organization. And our mission is to resource young people to be the watering hole for young people to come to then go back out, where they can develop their skills in resilience, in compassion, in leadership. And how we do that is each year I train young people to deliver an 8-week peer support and learning journey. And we call this a resilience circle. So these resilience circles become a vehicle for climate activation. We'll return back to that word. It becomes an 8-week journey of what I want to talk to you today about, which is climate activation. I'm so proud to share that we've done amazing things since 2020 when the project started, and we've set up 14 resilience circles with international application, and we've worked with 440 young people doing this really, really amazing work. And what we found working with these young people, does anyone here have young children, teenagers? And you don't need to share, but by a way of kind of nodding, is climate anxiety on their mind? Is it something that people are feeling fearful about? Yeah, that's really, really hard to navigate as a parent. And we found that this is really consistent in the people we work with. We work internationally, and we find that there are differences, particularly folk in the global south have additional mental health complications of threat to life, safety, and much less access to resources. The commonality across these spaces is loneliness, and unfortunately, it's some kind of intergenerational trauma. So we're going to all need to work together to fix that rift between generations. How we move people from a place of hopelessness to climate activation is through our 8-week course. And before I get there, I quickly want to make 3 definitions: resilience, activism, and climate activation, which is resilient activism. Resilience, a contested term in our organization, is our ability to weather storms, not the absence of storms. So in my story, I thought resilience was about the absence of storms, which was suppression, which was denial, which was not talking about how I was feeling. In this model, it's the acceptance and the inevitability of storms and what we can do to weather them individually, but more so collectively. I've included these 2 images here, a tomato and a tennis ball, for a quick pop quiz, because I've been talking for a long time now. Thank you for listening. Which do you think is more resilient? So by way of hands, when you squeeze a thing, is the tomato more resilient? Hands in the air. Oh, a smart bunch. And hands in the air if you think the tennis ball is more resilient. Almost unanimously, the tennis ball. My friend Chris Johnson asked me this question. He co-authored Active Hope with Joanna Macy when I was having a difficult time. And he asked me which one is more resilient, and I said, the tennis ball. Duh. You squeeze it, it bounces back. If I squeeze a tomato, it squashes, falls to the floor. And he said, so you're kind of all right and all wrong. They're both resilient. They are different forms of resilience. Because when you squash the tomato in your hand, the seeds hit the floor, and they are not buried, they are planted, and things grow from there. So that is a form of transformational resilience. And I wanted to share that because I'm sure many of us have really felt like a squashed tomato before. I definitely felt like a squashed tomato when I told you my story from 2019. And here we are now in this incredible church talking to you 4 years later. It's just a different form of resilience that invokes more mystery and much more trust. The second definition is activism. I'm not going to define activism, but activism is something which evokes imagery. And in the UK, it's kind of become synonymous with gluing yourself to stuff. I don't know if it's like that in your country as well. It's somewhat, unfortunately, become synonymized with being very radical, being very dangerous, and it's created in the UK politics a distance. People are finding that activism is less palatable, and it's created a sense of disconnection. And I know that to act on climate, we do need direct action. It needs to be part of the puzzle. We do need the youth movement, and more importantly, we need everyone involved. So if we have tactics which are forging disconnection, that's not the way that we're going to be bringing everyone into this movement in all of their different spaces, in all of their different sectors, in all of their different ways. Which is why the Resilience Project has developed this model of climate activation. Finally, she's talking about it. It's been 20 minutes. So, climate activation. This is a process of the 8-week course and model which we take young people on in our resilience circles. And it is appropriate beyond youth indefinitely. And you can see that it is a process that starts internally and then moves externally to action. And I will walk you through it. But to give a sense, climate activism is an event, a campaign, something you do, something fueled by fire, in most cases, not all, and it is wedded to outcome. Climate activation is a journey, it's a meandering, it's being a squashed tomato, it's being a tennis ball, it's occupying both the mountain and the puddle at the same time. And it's wedded to that journey that happens in community. And then action is the byproduct, which means that it's foregrounded in imagination and mystery. Because we don't know, after an 8-week activation, what kind of action someone will decide to take. To walk you through what we do in these 8 weeks. We start here in the center. I'm going to have to now start dancing around the stage to avoid the sun. Let's try over here. We start in the center. Inventory and introspection. This is when we take stock of the emotional terrain which guides our activism. How long have we got? Okay, let's do something. I'm going to name some emotions to do with the climate crisis. If you feel that, and I'm just pulling out some words that we've already heard today, I'd like you to stand up. I haven't said any words yet, hold on. There's a lot of feelings. Okay. Anger, Fear. Stay standing if you felt those things. Fear. Privilege. Disappointment. Hope. So if you take a look around, almost everyone is currently standing up. And we do this exercise to show that so many other of us are feeling the same things, even if we're not talking about it. So in the first weeks, you can stay stood up if you want to. Just have a little stretch. In the first week, we start to uncover that emotional terrain. We start to understand who we are. You can sit down. Beyond change-making. What brings us joy? What are our dreams? What are our aspirations? There's so much imposter syndrome in the youth space that here is where we start to meet each other first and foremost as humans. We then move to the cognitive space. We move to mind. So we move from who we believe we are to the stories that we have told ourselves that we are, that others have told us that we are, that a patriarchal white supremacy society have told us that we are. And we start to introduce this idea of narratives. We're vastly running out of time on this stage, but I want to give you some examples of the kind of narrative work that we do, particularly in the youth space. One really strong narrative is that climate anxiety is a mental health problem that needs to be fixed. This is something that can make us feel like we are the problem when we're feeling it, and that we need to be treated. We work with a different story, which is that climate anxiety is a very legitimate and rational response to an emergency. It shows that we are listening, it shows that we care, it's something that if we understand and hold safely, we can use to fertilize our action. Climate anxiety, lots of people think is just anxiety, but it actually captures all of the emotions that everybody just stood up for at the beginning. There are so many other narratives that exist in the youth space which are contributing to burnout. Particularly, which I'm learning as I get older, is not exclusive to youth, the idea that there's too much to do to rest. This is something that I've heard come up today already. That vulnerability is a weakness, that we can't ask for help. In week 2 and 3, we start to surface these narratives and understand what we open and close when we flip the script, when we try to find a different story. We then move to the real heart and magic of this program, which is the third space, which is community. This is where we find communities of trust and belonging, and at the Resilience Project, we make resilience circles around location, around movements, but very importantly around shared lived experience. So you can begin to start feeling seen, heard, and understood by other people who get it. Feeling seen, heard, and understood is a core human need. And in all of the evaluation of our work, this feeling, this experience, is what has been transformational for the young people that we work with. Having a space where you can kick and scream and shout and despair that's held by others who feel similarly has huge benefits to the young people that we're working with. And hopefully we'll do some testing of that in a little bit. In this space, we also focus on joy, a hugely overlooked aspect of taking action. And we start to find what we do as a community to build joy. Finally, we move to action or activism, and we take a very holistic understanding of action and activism. The imagery of activism is wedded to pickets and protests, but we say, what if activism became having a compassionate conversation with your uncle over Christmas dinner who's kind of a climate denier? What if that became a form of activism? If we're wedded to the idea that activism is just about policy wins, then unfortunately we keep losing. But if we expand the definition, if activism becomes creating a space by this statue where people who feel lonely can go stand and chat together, then we are winning daily. If activism becomes that incredible woman who interrupted the session to voice her story, to co-create something together, if that became activism, if we defined that as activism, we are constantly inspired. We are constantly winning. And the more we win, the more we feel hope. And hope is really the soil of this movement. So this journey moves us to this space where the outcome is one of mystery, of imagination, grounded in what we can do together. When we understand a bit more of our emotional terrain, we're supported by a fierce, loving community who will catch us when it hurts. When we're sharing openly about how we are feeling, when we are finding joy, and when we are doing an expansive form of action, which feels good for us, which isn't just the shouty stuff. And then we're building a more inclusive movement. So I want everyone to become a generation of climate activators. There is so much space in my movement if you want to come join. As activators, I want you to take this back to your organizations who might feel a bit nervous about the word activism and say, hey, have you heard of climate activation? Because that's something I think that we could all get on board with. And it builds a beautiful, diverse, emotionally informed movement, which I think is absolutely what we need to meet these targets, to meet these demands. We need to be bigger, bolder, braver, and supported. And that is climate activation. I want to take one quick moment just to share the impact of this climate activation journey. So we have pages and pages and pages of these testimonials, which I cannot share without smiling. It's so beautiful. You will see the word life-changing and transformational here. I cannot understate the power of being seen, heard, and understood. And I'm so proud to share the work that we're doing, harmonizing both the IDGs and the youth movement, and the mental health crisis, and the climate crisis. So, in the last little bit of time, because we are running out of time, isn't that sad? I want to stay here all afternoon. We're going to be doing an active listening exercise, and that is because I do recognize I have just been talking at you, and this is meant to be a workshop, not a TED Talk, but there's so much to say. And I want you to feel some of the magic of the program that we do. So we're going to be doing an exercise which is based in the third space, in the feeling, seen, heard, and understood. Can you raise your hand for me if you've ever done an active listening exercise? Oh, experts, let's trade places. Quite a lot of you. So in short, active listening is an exercise where you're listening to a person who is speaking, and you're trying to quieten the internal monologue in your mind that might want to make a judgment, relate it to your life, really compassionately validate their experience, tell them it's going to be okay, say something to help with any discomfort that they might be feeling. Active listening is just clearing your mind and listening and letting the speaker take up space. And the reason why we do it is because in conversation, I might say something, someone else says something, and then I'm following their conversational track. So conversation works. If they don't respond, I might have to go beyond the typical conversational track I go to usually, and I might have to start digging around a bit, and I might discover things that I didn't know were there. So I'm going to ask you a question. And I've been ruminating on this question all day, all lunchtime, considering the energy of the room, how massive the past 2 days are, and considering what happened in the previous session. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to go back to basics with where this whole story began. I'm about to tell you the question, and I want you to already start actively listening, because I might say the question and you might start thinking of the answer. So just listen to me. The question is 3 simple words. If you were listening, you'll know what they are. What are they? Yeah. The question is, how are you? What we're going to do is I'm going to invite you to go and sit next to a stranger. And person A will have 4 minutes to answer this question. How are you? Person B will listen. After 4 minutes, we will swap. Please don't respond to what person A has said. And then we will come back together and we will do a bit of a debrief, depending on what comes up. So, gorgeous Ida from the team is going to do this for you lovely folk at home. You are going to go into a breakout room of 2s, and you're going to have, someone's going to let you know how long the time has been before we pull you back into the room. An optional activity for you, or you can stay with me and watch me on the stage for 8 minutes. Before we go into this active listening exercise, I want to talk a little bit about a code of conduct, a code of care. A code of care is nicer. So the first invitation is not to unpack anything that you don't feel that you can repack after. I don't know how I can hold all 400 of you, so please just be mindful of your boundaries and trust. I think it's a very supportive space we have here, a very beautiful space, but please just keep that in mind of how you would like to answer this question. Please keep it confidential. Please resist the urge to respond. There may be silence. 4 minutes is quite a long time. So I'd like you to promise me that you will not fill the silence or respond. Please say, I promise. So the final thing to name is that you might notice in the first minute discomfort creeping in. Oh, it's so uncomfortable to be on the spot. How am I? I'm good. How are you? And then you might feel the heart creep in, the stomach creep in. Just please come with an attitude of curiosity. What I'd like you to do now is to find a stranger, and then we're going to do something else, which I will keep a secret. So please find a stranger, and please spread out a bit. You can stand if you want to. Thank you. Okay, lovely people. Please find your partner. Now, we're going to do something a little bit interesting. You might hate me. I apologize in advance. We are going to look our stranger / new friend. We're going to look at them in the eyes for 20 minutes. Okay, let's bring some silence because awkward chatter is already erupting. So please now look in the eyes of your partner. Theodore, could you play us some soft music? And you're going to sustain this eye contact. Already it might feel uncomfortable. You might want to laugh. You might want to look away. Just be really present with what is coming up in your mind and sustain this eye contact. And if you can, just really see the other person and really allow yourself to be seen. In a moment, one of you is going to ask the other person, "How are you?" And they will have 4 full minutes to explore that question. Whoever feels compelled to do it first, please start now, and I will bring you back in 4 minutes. come to just close your sentence, you can look back over this way now. That was so beautiful to watch. We're going to turn back to our partner. We're going to look in each other's eyes again. And this time we're just going to take one breath together, and then the other person will ask, "How are you?" to who hasn't spoken. And we'll meet back here in 4 minutes. Okay. If we can come to a close there. Theodore, if you can just keep the music going. I'd like you to hug This person, they are now your summit buddy. Please exchange details in the break. In the break. Am I at 0 minutes? Please now return to your seats. If everyone can return to their seats. Have I got a... Thank you, everyone. That was so profoundly beautiful to watch. Thank you, Theodore. Thank you, everyone. So, because we're short on time, I'll ask that you reflect with your summit buddy in the moments in between. But I invite you now just to take a moment to bathe in the afterglow of being seen and heard, and I hope understood. Things might have come up that you weren't expecting. It might have been really uncomfortable and you might have really disliked it. And as we said at the beginning, all of those parts are welcome here. Coming with an air of curiosity to that exercise. What I would like to do to close this space, I've been thinking about the words I want to use to close the space. And what I would actually love is I would love some reflections on how that experience was for you, and I would love that to be from someone who identifies as a young person. Yeah. So I would love to hear your reflections on the exercise. Or I just want you to take up space. You tell me whatever you like. Over to you. Can we get a mic? Thank you, Eduardo. And thank you so much for your courage. It can be really scary to share.
Thank you. Can you hear me? I don't know, was it supposed to be for you or? Maybe we can both go, I don't know. Okay, yeah, I'll start. So for me, the experience was very pleasant. At first I thought it was going to be very awkward. And I thought 4 minutes was going to be very, very long. But in fact, I think, I don't know, the time flew by. For me personally, I actually wanted to speak more, and I also wanted to listen more. And it was a very, very beautiful experience, and I feel a lot of love inside of me right now.
Thank you. And any reflections on anything that really resonated with you in the workshop is welcome as well.
So right now I'm experiencing, I love holding paradoxes, and so I'm feeling both graceful and fiercely bold to hold deep, deep space and recognize that I am to source for it all and for the connection of others. I even spoke on this as I was sharing this imagery of the tree, and trees grow the strength of the roots by their ability to withstand the wind. So when you spoke of resilience, that's what I pictured and recognized, that I too get to be this tree. And just as a tree creates shade for others and is giving, but it itself is beautiful, both as an individual and collective. And then I'm getting so clear on that, and it's time for me to show up and be seen like a majestic tree.
Like a majestic tree. Yes, over there in the middle.
We had one here.
Oh, okay.
And the last one in
Yes, we'll take 2 more.
Hi,
Where are you?
I'm here.
Hello.
In my sharing, I talked about looking at life as a young person and being perceived as old, and so I was encouraged by my partner to speak up. And thank you. I wear a t-shirt sometime that says, "I'm tired of hearing from old white men." And really, it's to encourage dialogue, because child mind comes in all sizes, and this is in ages, and this is an easy message for a room full of people that are here for inner development goals. And this exercise or forms of it I've had a chance to do before, and it's so beautiful every time to connect. And no matter our age, we are so young and curious if we allow ourselves. And thank you for all the connected people you are that bring that here.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I really don't want to stand, but hello, here I am. I'm going to sit down now.
Woo! No, come on.
No!
Woo!
Oh dear.
Show
Hello,
some support.
everyone. Oh,
Yeah.
you're too nice. Oh. I am so sorry, but I have forgotten your name.
My name is Katie Hodgetts. Lovely to meet
Katie.
you.
My name is Andreas.
Hi, Andreas.
And I am an activist, a climate activist. And my heart is still pounding because I'm terrified of looking people into the eye. So I was actually laughing a little bit in the beginning, but then you were very, I don't know, comfortable, or like it felt that way, and very secure, which helped me a lot. So thank you. And the entire experience was incredible in many ways, because from my activist space, we don't talk about it as climate activation and in the way that you do, but in Fridays for Future Sweden, which I come from, which Greta started and all of that, we do that. It's how are you? And we have created a spam space, really. It was supposed to be a spam chat, which evolved to being a community, which is now called the Moose Cult. And then it's lots of different, species names, and the discussions there are incredible. And not only, surrounding climate, but also what we feel, and surrounding school and relationships and all of those things that we don't talk about normally because we constantly work. And I've been doing this. We started in 2018. I was 14 then. I'm 19 today. And it's horrible at times because the responsibility that I feel, I received an award. It's so odd to say this, I'm too Swedish, but I received an award from the King this spring for my leadership. Thank you, thank you. And it was because of the way I work around climate, and with climate, and with the people I'm working with. It's difficult, but it's also, about uplifting each other and making sure that we, still can own our project as youth and being important and using that importance of having youth inclusion, but also having the ownership of those projects, and then taking support and receiving help from adults, from you, because we also need you. And we need you to, take the torch and continue this fight together with us. And I'm probably very, very flumsy right now, but I'm really happy that we're all here. And I love this space so, so, so much. So thank you.
Thank you. I really need to close now. I really don't want to. This is all about peer support. Please, please connect with me on the gram up there, on LinkedIn. They're the two platforms I use. I'd love to hear your feedback on the activation model and on this session. And I will just finish with a thank you. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to our climate activists. Thank you to our young at hearts. Thank you to our majestic trees. Thank you so much for having me.
Wait.
Oh,
This is the,
I'm staying.
yeah.
You're going to ask me a question.
Yeah, you have to stay because this is the moment I ask you a question. But actually, I don't have any questions to ask you. But let me share with you all what I saw. I saw the quintessential example of linking the IDGs and the SDGs. I saw the perfect example of trying to change the world, but having a burnout in the process. Stopping with introspection, you said, reflecting and saying, we have to take care of ourselves first. And I think that's what you did, and that's what you're proposing everyone to do. You have wit, you have a lot of humor. I love when you said the key is keep up the joy, and I can't share anything without smiling, and that shows. So, squash tomato and tennis ball, congratulations for everything you're doing, for the climate change, for the world, for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eduardo. I'll take my chair.